Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for today's webinar on resources for patients and survivors with hepatitis C. I'd like to introduce the American Liver Foundation Great Lakes Division Board Member, Tony Feldstein, to do this presentation.
Hi everyone, it's great to be here. And as Sarah said, my name is Tony. I had hepatitis C for over 33 years. I was diagnosed in 1984, non-A, non-B at the time. It became chronic, and I struggled with it for these decades until I took a Harvoni treatment, an 8-week treatment last year, which cleared me of the virus. And what I'd like to share with you this week is, I guess, from my personal experience, as well as the, I guess, very extensive research I've done to find ways to cope and manage my disease over the decades. I want to share with you the tools and resources that were the most useful for me. Basically, after the initial shock and the terror that really I felt, keep in mind at the time there was no treatment available, nobody really could see anything coming on the horizon, and so I was just really overwhelmed with fear. I decided, nevertheless, to try to live my best life and to find a way to cope with my fear and shift from the uncertainty of living with an illness that can maybe kill you to being able to live my life in joy and happiness, regardless of my circumstances. Next slide, Sarah. So what I did was figure out, at the initial diagnosis, I was very resistant. I, at the time, definitely put my head in the sand and kept it there for a very long time. I think that the only thing that did for me is to increase the fear, to not being able to enjoy my life. And so eventually I decided, okay, I need to accept my condition and deal with it. I also realized that I had all these emotions inside, the fear, the uncertainty. My children were very small. I was raising 2 children. I was working in real estate. I was married to a wonderful man, and I felt so overwhelmed that I wasn't able to cope in the best way that I could. I started to write in my diary and just release the pent-up emotions that I was feeling. I still didn't know how to cope with the rest, but at least I got in touch with my emotions, started to keep a diary, and every day, at least twice a day, I would sit down and just give myself free flow and just write it all out. I think that when we navigate between resisting and accepting our condition, we can do the best we can, but it's the first step in just shifting from being overwhelmed to actually proactively dealing with our condition and having a better life. Next. I cannot say, I mean, honestly, as many of you, if you're dealing with this illness, I didn't do anything to take charge of my disease for the longest time. I was just too scared, too overwhelmed. But once I did, then, it really changed everything. I cannot tell you how much taking charge of your disease is going to help you. It is the single most important thing you can do. So after you stick your head in the sand for a while, I recommend take it out of the sand and take charge of your disease. How do you do that? Well, you're going to have to go to the doctor and educate yourself with his or her help on what is hepatitis C, what the treatments are, and the stage of your condition. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and maybe sometimes it's helpful to bring a buddy along because they can take notes while you're talking with the doctor. You will not remember everything. It's been very helpful for me. The other thing is, besides obviously your doctor visits, just do your own research from reputable sources. And obviously the American Liver Foundation is the best source for any information regarding your condition. So don't be afraid to be your own researcher. And based on your condition, your symptoms, just do your research. Knowledge is power. I started to feel more empowered the more I learned about hepatitis C, how the virus replicates, the treatments, where I was in the stages of my liver disease. And then, of course, taking charge of your disease also means taking charge of your treatment options. You're the one who decides what you want to do. Do you want to treat? Do you want to wait? And if you do decide to wait, well, do you know how to make the necessary lifestyle changes so that you at least live the healthiest life you can while waiting to treat? So treatment decisions is a family and healthcare professional affair. You know, it's easy to feel that you're all alone, and that's why it's very important also to invite, whether it's friends or family members, to go to appointments with you. It was very, very helpful for me to start to talk about my disease. I know there's this whole stigma associated with it, but I just, I kicked the stigma to the curb for my own good. And I suggest that you want to do the same, because there is nothing shameful about hepatitis C. If anybody out there has a reaction that you consider negative, it really is their problem, not yours. You have enough on your plate, and the last thing you need is to feel bad because you have this disease. Kicking stigma to the curb also allows you to speak about it more freely with your family, with your friends, obviously as long as you feel it's a safe environment. I'm not discounting the fact that there may be some repercussions out there, maybe in the workplace, so use your own discretion, but it's been really helpful for me to just talk about it, and taking charge of the disease has been life-changing. Next, I really changed my lifestyle. I changed everything. I was not drinking alcohol anymore. I was not smoking. I was not doing any drugs. But that was not enough. I mean, that's obviously the least we can do. What I did also is changed the foods I ate. I started to drink a lot more water. I worked out every day. Keep in mind, at the time, my energy level was very, very low. So by workout, I mean to say, maybe I lay down on the carpet and just started to stretch and do some deep breathing exercises. I also decided I need to be able to access my inner power inside of myself. So I started to meditate. I made sure I got a really good night's sleep. I made sure that I included things that just brought a lot of joy in my life. And some of those things are very little things, but whether it's watching a funny movie, going for a walk, looking at beautiful art, even if it's online. I think that it was very important for me to start to surround myself and to activate inside of myself, you know, the things and the feelings that in my perfect life I would want to have. Because hepatitis C can really not only obviously drain you of your physical energy, but also emotional energy and take you out of your own center. So if we try to approach it with just the medical part without doing our part, which means doing the lifestyle changes, it's going to be much more difficult. Next, the stress reduction. I spoke about it just a tiny bit, but I think that is very, very important because we cannot underestimate how much this disease stresses us. I mean, we're aware our active mind, our conscious mind is maybe obviously only aware of maybe 10-15% of everything, of our capabilities. And so we can feel the stress, but believe me, it's like an iceberg. That's only the tip of the iceberg. And the stress that I carried inside of my body, of which I was mostly unconscious and I could not access, was enormous. How I know this? It's because the contrast, once the virus was gone, and I felt the enormous relief, right, from not being sick anymore, as well as the physical well-being that I felt. I realized how much stress I was carrying inside of myself. And so stress reduction is extremely important. There are many different forms of meditation out there. They do not have to be, you know, from the traditional, timeless meditation traditions, I guess. They can be your own. You know, whatever makes you able to connect within to the source of unconditional love and peace that we all have inside of ourselves, well below the surface where, you know, our circumstances create agitation, etc. We can all reconnect inside with this unbelievable source of peace. We just have to find our own way. So maybe a traditional meditation technique doesn't work for you. You can make your own. I spent 8 years meditating at least 3 hours a day, and it was way before I received the treatment. It really helped me shift from being overwhelmed with fear to becoming more centered inside of myself. And in that place, or let's say from that place, I was better able to accept my condition while I was waiting for a viable treatment. I was better able to start to generate more energy from my own life force. And so, you know, I could still have really bad days when my virus would keep me on the couch, but I had shifted from uncertainty and fear to a place of acceptance. I felt more self-empowered. I was reducing my stress. I was able to feel more gratitude and more love, you know, from self-love to love to my children, my husband, etc. So anything you can do to reduce your stress is going to be tremendously helpful to deal with this entire thing. Next, you will, and I'm sure everyone here, you know, you go online, you have a lot of different forums, you read about other people's journeys. You also have from the medical community the regular steps that they recommend. And ultimately, you need to chart your own course. I was very intimidated by my liver specialists in the past, and was just kind of scared to deal with some of the options they offered. Once I was able to access and to, get back to my center and access my own wisdom, to empower myself, to read about the options, I was able to be comfortable making my own decisions, charting my own course. Everybody has a unique path to their wellness. And I think that right now, the opportunities for cure are so tremendous. We have all these new drugs with very, very high cure rates. So it's really up to us to take the steps necessary, and some of them are not easy, but to get approved, to get the medication. But we have to remember that we are in control, and we can chart our own course and our unique path to wellness. One thing that really helped me, I call it the why exercise. I'm not going to demonstrate it now, but one thing, maybe in a time when you're very relaxed, just reconnect with why it is. What is it that moves you the most? Get back in touch with your strongest passions, and really what it is that gets you every day out of bed to do what you do. What is your own way, basically, to find a meaning in this life? And when we are facing a chronic condition like Hep C, we kind of step out of our own meaning. All of a sudden, there's just this disease, and it's easy to step out. So I think it's very important to reconnect with your why. What is it that makes you get up, and the compelling reason that you want to participate in the world, to get up, and what is it you want to do, and who it is you want to be. Because I think that by reconnecting with your why, then it becomes much easier to identify what I call the SMART goals. In other words, the steps to take you from fear, uncertainty, struggle to joy, happiness, and peace. You have to have clear steps, and every day you can do something towards, those steps. So to me, SMART steps have to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. In other words, give yourself little deadlines, and make sure that every day you do 3-4 things that are going to go towards you fulfilling your goals. Next, I want to talk for a few minutes about symptoms and uncertainty, because we all have different symptoms, and some of us have more severe symptoms than others. One of the things that helped me the most was to stop resisting. So if I got up in the morning and I was really nauseous and tired, or whatever symptom would crop up, I would start to relax into it and really surrender to it. I call it riding the wave, because the more I resisted, in that I mean the more I felt and said to myself, oh, why am I so tired? Oh, this is terrible. Oh my God, I don't feel well. The more I was miserable, as opposed to just riding the wave and accepting it. Okay, well, today is a day where I'm just going to be on the couch. Or today, my reality is I have very little energy, so let me organize my day to do the things that I know I have to do, pick up the kids from school, or maybe ask my friend to pick the kids from school, you know, maybe the groceries, whatever, and then let me not resist it, but accept it. Acceptance is one step closer to just shifting from I'm powerless to I'm empowered. It also helps to stay centered. You know, you can ride the wave of any symptom you have and still stay in your center. And within that center, there's always the opportunity to experience joy, peace, love. And that, you know, takes you way out of the fear and the uncertainty. Living in the present and finding a new comfort zone. That's also very important. I mean, anytime I would go into the what ifs, what if I get worse? What if I never get cured? What if I don't know how to be free of the disease in my mind after all these decades, you know? So that's also very important. Just rein it back and live in the present as much as you can. Next, removing obstacles and letting go of what does not serve you. Super important while you're battling the disease or afterwards. One thing to mention is, you know, we don't get to live decades with hepatitis C and not have somewhat of a challenge afterwards or have a transition from being identified as, you know, the sick person with hep C to, okay, now identifying with this free of hep C person. So there is definitely a transition and an opportunity to release past emotions, toxic situations, to examine the quality of our thoughts and our actions, and to really shed our old identity. Because I think that, you know, we can only create a new reality with a new mindset. And if for 30 years I lived as, you know, a hep C person, afraid of dying, afraid of, you know, getting sicker, it's imperative that to go and live my best life, I find a way to transition to the mindset of a healthy person. And it's definitely helpful to start to become very, very conscious of how we think, the quality of our thoughts, and maybe to release and remove old patterns. And we can all do that, you know, but it takes some action on our part and also the willingness to feel our vulnerability and to also take 100% responsibility, you know, for the energy we put out there in thoughts and actions. One thing I think we can all agree is when we are free of hep C, the most important thing, and I guess my most important realization, is I'm not sweating the small stuff anymore. I had a challenge a couple of weeks ago in a very important relationship in my life, and it was a big challenge, to tell you the truth. But I brought it back to, wait a minute, you know, I beat hep C. I was able to live all these years, the best life I could. Now I'm free of it, and I'm not going to sweat the small stuff. Yes, this relationship is important, but put it in perspective. You know, I have an opportunity to have a new lease on life, free of hep C, so let's not sweat the small stuff. I think that all of us are pretty good at that after battling hepatitis C. Next, one thing I'm very excited about with these new cures that are so effective is that after the cure, as I said, the transition to the new you. Well, I loved it, and there's so many things that we can do to get in touch with our new selves. I share a few exercises on my website. I'm sure there'll be a link provided to you, but very simple, effective exercises that put me back in touch with my passions. Okay, just because I've been a realtor all my life doesn't mean that this is really what I want to do with the rest of my life. So I got in touch with, well, I really want to help others. The passion test is a very simple exercise to try to just shift and reconnect through, what you think you want to do to what your real desires and joys are in life. The circle of success is also a simple exercise that I like to do, and that exercise just gives you a chance to examine your entire everything in your life. In other words, we're not just bodies, we're mind, bodies, souls, and so basically discovering the new self also means empowering all our different parts. Hopefully align all our parts so that we can live our very best life. I think this is an overview of some of the things that I've learned, and you can put it on the next slide, Sarah. It's my last slide. But I just, this is such an exciting time because we have the opportunity to get cured, and along with it, we do have, I think, the responsibility to really empower ourselves now to live our best life. And one way we can do that is to help each other and to pay it forward, which is why my personal involvement with the American Liver Foundation is so gratifying and wonderful to me. And I hope that everybody out there can transition from being sick to being cured, and can also transition from the uncertainty of the old life to the fabulous opportunities in your new life. And that's, I want everyone to know, that's my deepest wish.
Thank you. That was a wonderful presentation. At this time, if anyone has any questions, they can type them in and Tony will answer them. Well, thank you so much. We are going to put this webinar on our website and on YouTube and social media, so hopefully other people will be able to join in and hear all the useful advice that Tony was able to give. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone.